3, I got this great idea that I was going to start cleaning out the garage. Now, that's not my garage, right? Mrs. Peterson would have none of that, I assure you. But you know, listen, it's pretty incredible what can happen over the course of a few years in a garage, isn't it? I mean, you could even be a fairly organized person and fairly meticulous, but just over time, you begin to collect it. I mean, you go to a yard sale and you see something there, you're like, that's a great deal, and I know I'll use that sometime, so you pick it up, you stick it in the garage. Christmas rolls around, the in-laws, they get you something that they're sure you'll use, and so you take it and you stick it in the garage. Over the course of time, you begin to accumulate some stuff, and you add shelves, and the shelves get full. And before long, the shelves are full, and you continue to accumulate stuff, so it gets stuck on the sides. It's amazing what you can accumulate over the course of time, isn't it, in a garage? Crazy. And then, I don't know, one day, like you open the garage door and you're having someone come into your house and they happen to go through the garage and you're like hit with this wave of embarrassment. Has that ever happened to anyone? Like, oh my God, look at my garage. Who have I become, right? So in the process of doing that, I was surprised as I was cleaning out our garage. I was surprised at the things that I found that were out of date. Like meat in the freezer, right? Listen. They say it can stay for a while, but meat that's been in it for a couple years, I don't know if I'm going to take a shot at that. Or how about paint? Anybody, I had open cans of paint, and it was solid. And paint's not supposed to be solid, right? But it just hung around for a while. And then I found some broken things. I found some tools that were broken. Not by me, because I don't use tools, but they were still broken. I found some toys that were broken that I meant to fix, and just never got around to it, probably because my tools were broke, but nevertheless, they were broken. And, I found some things that had never been used. Some of them were still in the boxes. They were maybe Christmas gifts from Sherry's family to me, right? They were yard sale treasures that I was sure that I would use, and just stuff that never really got used. So we just made this decision a couple years ago. We are going to become minimalists, right? We're going to just get rid of stuff. We're going to live with as little as possible. Started getting rid of stuff. This is no lie, we took so many trips to Goodwill that the guy there, he actually began to know us, and one day he looked at us, and this is the exact quote. He said, let me just say it, because I wrote it down what he said. He said, man, you're not going to have anything left in your house. We took so much stuff there that he actually thought we were going to have nothing left in our house. We got rid of a lot of stuff, right? And then there was trash day, right? We just hauled stuff out of the garage and we stuck it at the curb. And we stuck stuff down the curb like the old refrigerator that I finally accepted I wasn't going to be able to fix. Right? So it got stuck at the end of it was garbage. We got rid of an old wagon, had a broken wheel, and Sherry's like, we got to get rid of that. I'm like, no, I can fix that. And finally, in our move to clean everything out, we got rid of it, took it to the end of the road. So I've been thinking a lot recently, and I've been thinking that life is like a garage, right? Life can be a lot like a garage. We accumulate stuff, don't we, over time? We just begin to accumulate stuff. And a lot of the stuff, if you're honest about it, if you begin to think about your life, a lot of the stuff that we begin to accumulate, in many cases can be, and in some cases ought to be, gotten rid of. It is possible to live your life and accumulate habits, attitudes, memories. It is possible to live your life with feelings of anger, feelings of regret, feelings of guilt, feelings of despair, feelings of hopelessness, and you begin to take an analysis of your life and you realize, I've got so much crap in here that I can't get any good stuff in. And that's what happens in garages sometimes. That you get so much crap in there that there's no room for the good stuff. Right? There's some people, I'm sure no one in this room, but some people actually are in a scenario where there's so much crap in your garage you can't even get your car in there. The good thing is we live in Rock Hill and there's an abundance of storage units. Amen? No, but the truth is, it's possible for our garage to be so full of stuff that we can't get the good stuff in there. And it's true in our lives as well. It's possible that our lives are filled with so much crap and trash and hurtful, unhelpful, broken, unused stuff that we can't ever really get the good stuff in. And I just want to throw this out. Maybe it's time to start some cleaning. Maybe it's time to take a good hard self-analysis and begin the process of cleaning out some junk, taking some stuff to the curb, throwing some stuff away, letting some stuff go. Stuff you thought, I'll never be able to get rid of that, I'll use that someday, I'll do something with that. Whatever. Maybe it's time to start letting some stuff go. So I've been processing for about, 4, 5, 6 weeks, a couple of sentences from St. Paul. And he writes, and these are familiar sentences. We've all thought about them, probably at some point. You probably all heard of them. But he's writing this letter to a group of rookie Christians. These are young believers. And he's teaching them how to live a life that's full and healthy and that honors God and is good to live. He's talking to them about how to do that. And this is what he says in Ephesians chapter 4. He says this, look, I'd like you to, he doesn't say this, but the implication is this. I'd like you to take a walk around the garage of your life, and I'd like you to get rid of some things. Like, for instance, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. So just stop and just take a quiet reflection, a moment of quiet reflection, and ask yourself this. As I look around my life, do I see things like rage? Do I see things like anger? Do I see things like harsh words? Like if somebody were to pull their car in my garage, would a harsh word fall on the hood? Is your life filled with this stuff, right? This garbage, this trash, this stuff that really is a mess, is creating a lot of chaos. Is this descriptive of your life? And these are the kinds of questions that I've been processing recently, right? So St. Paul says, look, get rid of some of this stuff that's filling up your life, that's blocking out your life, and make some room for the new, good, helpful stuff. He says, get rid of all that stuff. And he said, look, instead, here's what I want you to do. Instead of being angry and harsh and malicious, be kind to each other. Tender-hearted, which is another way of saying compassionate. Forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. So to be honest with you, I think this is an incredibly appropriate word for the season in which we find ourselves. We've just come through one of the most contentious elections in recent history. And I would bet that in this room there are people who voted Democrat, and I would bet that there are people who voted Republican, and I would bet there are people who didn't vote, and I would bet there are people who voted Libertarian, and I would bet there are people who voted for things we don't even know about, right? And if you just listen to social media or you watch the news, you can see there's so much angst and there's so much bitterness and there's so much raw. Add that to the normal stuff of life and it gets pretty doggone chaotic, doesn't it? And so Paul says, listen, take an analysis of your life. If you're finding rage, if you're finding anger, if you're finding hostility, if you're finding all of these other, just this trash, just take it to the curb. Let's just start getting rid of it. Instead, begin to fill up your life with things like kindness, compassion, forgiveness. Just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you, so you begin to fill up your life with that same kind of generosity and begin to offer it to the people around you, right? The people with whom you live, the people with whom you associate. So, recently this word kindness has been kind of just revolving around, because the honest truth is, confession, moment of confession, kindness is not something that comes particularly easy to me. Impatience, that comes fairly easily, right? A little bit of aggressiveness, that also comes fairly easily. A lack of empathy, that too comes fairly easily. And so Jesus has just been kind of like leaning in, and that's why this verse has been so just kind of like crushing in on me recently. I'm like, as I'm praying, like, what are we going to talk with the church? What are we going to share with the church? I really felt like this is a conversation that we ought to have together. So together maybe we can grow and evolve in this kind of thing, right? And so what I realized is when talking about this idea of kindness is this. It's difficult to be kind if you've not received kindness. Right? If you have someone poking a finger in your chest, it's pretty doggone hard to be kind. But if you have someone wrap their arms around you and give you a big hug, why, it's a heck of a lot easier to wrap your arms around them and give them a big hug, isn't it? When you receive kindness, it's a lot easier to be kind in return. And so what's interesting to me is that when Paul, he's writing to these rookie Christians, right? These are people who've not really been Christians for a long time. They didn't grow up in church. They didn't really understand Christian stuff. So he said, listen, I'm praying, and if you read through the book of Ephesians, you'll see multiple times. He said, I'm praying that you'll get it. I'm praying that you'll begin to understand how good God is and how much He loves you and what kind of power He has for you. So I'm praying for you that you get this stuff. In fact, he said in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 8, he said, God has showered His kindness on us along with all wisdom and understanding. And I'm just praying, he said, that every single one of you will understand that. And so as I'm thinking about that, I think about you. And I've been praying this for you, that God will somehow open your eyes and that you'll get it. That you'll absolutely begin to get a sense of how kind and good God is. So this week I threw out this question on Facebook, and I asked this question: is God kind? Now, for those of us who grew up in the church, our immediate response would be, yes. Of course, God is kind. But here's the truth. Sometimes it could be, if you're really honest, you find yourself in situations where you're like, okay, I know the Bible says God is kind, but it does not feel kind right now. You ever been there? You've ever been in that situation where you're like, I do not necessarily feel the kindness of God right now. I feel maybe ignored a little bit. I feel maybe a bit of hostility. So all of these things. And so it's interesting. I got a couple responses online. I got more responses offline. Right? People processing the idea of the kindness of God. And what I realize is that while most of us would say God is kind, sometimes it can be hard to identify exactly how He's kind when you're in the fog. And so I just wanted to quickly show you a few ways that God's kindness is shown to us. And these are all in the book of Ephesians, if you'd care to read through that. For instance, God is kind in His forgiveness. God has said to every one of us, you are forgiven. You say it. You list out every bad thing you've ever done, and God says, forgiven, 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 forgiven. You are forgiven. That's a pretty doggone kind thing to do, isn't it? Forgiven. God gives us friends. And He gives us the church. And really, the church is a great place to make great connections. Ruth and Kathy, I appreciate you guys bringing what you did today. You know, it's a gift of kindness that God gives to us. He's like, here's a place where people are honest about who they are. They're honest about their brokenness. But they're also sincere in their pursuit of God. And together we get better. That's a gift of kindness to us. God is kind in that He gives us His Holy Spirit, who gives us power. Power to actually begin to change. Power to begin to transform. God is kind in that He gives us hope. Like, no matter where I am, I have hope that things can improve and things can change and I can become a different man. That is an act of kindness on God's part. So God is kind, right? And He offers us many acts of kindness for His own reputation. He offers us kindness because He's a kind God. And He offers us kindness so that we can give it to others for their good. But He also, Paul's like, look, I want you to be kind because it's good for you too. Because kind people they live a better life, don't they? Right? You know, people who are always angry and hostile, those are the kind of people that I don't know, man, they're just always angry and whining about something, and it feels like they just gotta figure out how to medicate themselves so that they can at least live a decent existence without this anger just consuming them from the inside. And Paul says, listen, there's a better way. Just get rid of that anger and be kind. It's a better way to live. Right? Instead of all of this anger and bitter, he said, look, be kind, be tenderhearted, forgiving each other just as God through Christ has given you. God is kind to us. And He calls us now to be kind to others. And so essentially what He's saying is, look, clean out your life. Get rid of this stuff in your life so that you can fill it up with some really great stuff. So, I've been thinking about kindness and being kind to people. And I've thought about some of you, and I've thought about some of your stories. And I've thought about faces and names of people and various experiences, both in this church and outside of this church. And I've wondered, how do you forgive and be kind to someone like that? You know? I mean, some of you in this room have had some crazy stuff happen. And you're reading through and you see Paul say, look, clear out the anger and clear out the rage and clear out the bitterness and instead replace it with kindness and forgiveness and compassion. And my question is, how do you do it to somebody like that? Somebody who's violated you, somebody who's destroyed you, somebody who's broken you. Sorry, I did not mean to point at him. Just happened to work out like that. How does that happen? How do you be kind? How do you forgive the worst? Then, so I'm asking this question, like, be kind, be forgiving, be compassionate. How do I do it, God? And then I did what is often helpful to do when you're reading the Bible and you have a question. I read the next sentence. This is what Paul says. Be kind, right? He says we ought to be kind. We ought to be tenderhearted. We ought to be forgiving. How? This is what he says, Ephesians 5:1. Say it with me, please. Imitate God in everything you do because you're His dear children. He said, live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered Himself as a sacrifice for us. So I begin to process this. And where I'm at in this journey is that I believe that kindness, compassion, forgiveness really come down to this: a God-empowered choice. A God-empowered choice. I can choose to be angry and speak harsh words. I can choose to give vent to my rage, or I can take the God-empowered choice. I can imitate God, which is Paul says. I can follow the example of Christ and speak kindness and offer forgiveness and seek to be compassionate. That's a choice that I have. Empowered by God. So I'm thinking through this, and let me just offer you this sentence for whatever it's worth to you. That God's forgiveness and God's kindness through Christ to me is the foundation of my personal behavior. In other words, God forgave me, I can forgive you. God has been kind to me, I can be kind to you. God is compassionate to me, I choose to be compassionate to you. Let me show you how this works. Remember this guy? Dylan Roof. 21 years old at the time. Wednesday, June 17th, 2015, at 9:05 p.m. After he had spent a Wednesday evening sitting in an African American church at a Bible study, as they were concluding, they went into prayer. And it was at that moment that Dylan Roof pulled out a gun and began to shoot people. After his capture and his court date, at the end of the court, the judge offered this opportunity to family members of the deceased to speak and address Dylan. They looked at the screen, and this is from the Washington Post article, which we posted along with the video of this, and it's going to be on our Facebook page later today. I strongly encourage you to watch this. This is what the Washington Post said. One by one, those who chose to speak at a bond hearing did not turn to anger. Instead, while he remained impassive, they offered him forgiveness and said they were praying for his soul, even as they described the pain of their loss. Listen to this. Nadine Collier, the daughter of a 70-year-old lady whose life had been taken in those moments, said to Dylan, "You took something very precious from me. I will never talk to her again. I will never, ever hold her again. But I forgive you." and have mercy on your soul. In those moments, these followers of Jesus made a decision. In the middle of this incredible pain, they made a decision to get rid of anger and bitterness and hostility and rage. They made a God-empowered decision to forgive. You've got to watch the video. I encourage you to do it today. Now, I watched that story and I'm like, could I do that? If somebody walked in this room and shot my wife, could I forgive them? I hope that I could. I hope I could. But there's another story that I want to tell you. 9/11. Remember this lady? Lisa Beamer. Her husband, Todd Beamer, was on the plane that was reportedly headed for Washington, D.C., perhaps the White House. And her husband led a team of people with these famous words, "Let's roll." They took down the terrorists. They crashed the plane in a field in Pennsylvania. After 9/11, Lisa Beamer was interviewed. And it was on Dateline, NBC Dateline. And Stone Phillips was actually interviewing her. And she said that some of Todd's last words were the Lord's Prayer. Stone Phillips, the interviewer, looked at her, and this is a picture of her in the interview. He said, "You say that you believe when he was reciting the part of the Lord's Prayer which says, 'Forgive us our trespasses,' or 'Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us,' that in some way, in some sense, he was forgiving the terrorists? Is that what you're saying, Lisa?" She said, "I believe that in that moment, he was trying to get his heart right and know that he was in line with the person that God would have wanted him to be before he took some serious action." And then Stone Phillips said this, "Can you forgive the hijackers? Can you forgive the men who took your husband's life?" Listen to this. She said, "I don't think about them a lot. You know, bitterness and anger doesn't get one very far in life. And I won't allow it to seep in. I won't allow someone else's terrible actions to turn me into a person that I don't want to be. Whether if I could, sit down next to Osama bin Laden right now, would I say, 'I forgive you'? In other words, if I had the chance to sit beside Osama bin Laden, the mastermind of this whole thing that took my husband from me, would I forgive you? Would I be able to say that to Osama bin Laden?" Here's her answer. "I don't think so quite yet." I love that answer. I love it. You know why? Because it's honest and it's hopeful. It's honest and it's hopeful. And my guess is there's someone or someone's in this room this morning and you've been wronged aggressively. And you read these words from St. Paul saying, hey, get rid of all rage and anger and malice and hostility. Get rid of all this stuff. Get rid of harsh words, right? Instead, be kind and forgiving and compassionate. And you're like, oh. I see the story, and there's amazing Christians at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and how they looked Dylan Roof in the face and said, I forgive you. But I don't think I can do that. You know what? Can I just say to you, if you're in this room and you can't be like the people at Charleston, maybe we could be like Lisa Beamer and say, I don't think so quite yet. There's still hope. There's still a very distinct possibility that I will work to a place where I can offer forgiveness, just like Christ has forgiven me, just like the people of Charleston offer forgiveness. There's still a very distinct possibility that I can do that. And so what I want to do this morning is I just want to quickly share with you, those of you who, some of you are like, man, I can forgive easily. God bless you, good for you. Some of you are like, the people in Charleston, man, I could forgive even if the worst and most unthinkable thing was done to me, I could forgive. God bless you. But I want to speak to those of you who are living in the world of not quite yet. I can't quite yet offer forgiveness. I can't quite yet offer kindness. How do you cross the line? Just share 3 steps that I think are mission critical for moving from a place of rage and anger and harsh words and malice to a place of kindness and forgiveness and compassion. They're pretty simple. But it'll take a huge amount of God-empowered willpower to engage. You ready? Number 1. Pray to God. Pray to God. Listen, it is God's idea that we forgive. It is God's idea that we set other people free so we're not hanging on to their crime against us. We're not shaped by their crime against us. We set them free through forgiveness so that we can be free to fill our lives up with kindness and goodness and compassion. That was God's idea. And God actually modeled the way. He actually did it. He actually showed us how to do it. He gave us Himself. He gave us Christ. And He said, imitate Jesus. Right? If you're struggling with anger and rage and hostility, could I just please encourage you to carve out some time on a daily basis to have a conversation with God? He's the best forgiver. And He's the kindest of all. And have this conversation with God that goes like this. God, I am wrought with anger. I am filled with rage. Every time I open my mouth when I think about this person, there's no blessing coming out. There's harsh words. Will you change my heart, God? Will you change my heart? God may never change that other person, but I promise you, prayers like that to our good Father do not go unheard. If you're ready to begin taking some of that junk out of your life, if you're ready to stop living under the weight of anger and hostility and harshness, would you just begin by having a regular conversation with God that goes like that? God, please help me forgive. The second, make a decision. Make a decision. It really goes like this. I am going to forgive. I am going to forgive him. I am going to forgive her. I am going to do this. That's exactly what Paul says. He says, listen, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get rid of some things. Take some things to the curb. Take some things to Goodwill. Get rid of some of the stuff in your life that's crowding up and keeping all of the good things that God wants to bring in your life from actually having space. Get rid of it. Now listen. There was a lot of time that I would spend in my house. And I would say things like this to Sherry. You know, someday I'm going to clean out that garage. And I would talk about it a lot. But you know, it never got done. Until I made a decision. Some of you in this room, you've talked about forgiveness, you've thought about forgiveness, you've thought about being compassionate, you've thought about being kind, but you continue to live with the garbage of anger and harsh words and hostility. Would you just pray a prayer and make a decision? You're going to forgive. Make a God-empowered decision. And then I want to give you the final word. And I really want you to get this. This is important. Ready? Get stronger by 2.5. I want you to get this word. Get stronger by 2.5. And to help me explain this concept, I want to invite my scrawny friend, Rob Polenick, to join me up front. He's so tiny. I keep telling him, you got to get some weight on, man. So this is Rob, my friend. Rob, what do you do?
I own Brutal Iron Gym, so I'm a personal trainer, nutritional counselor, I guess.
Brutal Iron Gym,
Yes.
personal trainer. We've been friends for what, 6, 7, 8 years?
Not even count. It's just so enjoyable. Why?
It is. Well, that's it.
Yes.
So, you own a gym. So tell us, like, how much these weights weigh.
So this is a 45-pound bumper plate. So it's made of rubber, so that way if you drop it, it doesn't break the cement or break other things. So, yeah, it's That's 45 pounds. You're gonna get a workout doing that.
Yeah, I know. I'm starting to
That is a
sweat little bit.
25-pound plate. So it's a little bit smaller. You definitely need them in training. So when you can't make the 45-pound jumps, you make the 25-pound jumps.
Okay.
And then this is Paul's max. So this is a 2.5-pound plate. You go to 2.5.
So I remember the first time I ever saw a 2.5 was at Red Iron Gym.
Yes.
And the first time I ever saw this, one of these, I actually laughed.
Yes, you did. I remember that conversation.
I called it a baby weight.
Yeah.
And like, have you ever seen anyone like come into the gym and like walk over and start with something like this? Like, and newcomers, right? They walk in the gym, they start with it. Like most guys walk into the gym and what do we start with?
Most guys walk into the gym, they put a 45-pound plate on the bar, and they almost die. So, because their ego will not let them lift an empty bar, so it has to be something on there, and there's definitely not going to be a 2.5-pound plate. So that's what they start with.
I was at the gym once and I saw a guy come in. He got out of his car, walked into the gym. He was with his girl, right? That's right there. You know something bad's going to happen. So he comes in and he grabs, he gets on the bench. He honestly looks like he probably can't bench 200 pounds.
I actually think I remember this guy. Yeah.
Right? So he comes in, he jumps on, he puts 185 pounds on the bar. He unracks. Right? And I almost tore a hamstring. This is no joke. I almost tore a hamstring going to rescue him.
Yes.
And I looked at him like, maybe you want to start a little lighter next time, buddy.
Yeah.
Right?
That'd be a good idea. Yes.
But the point is, no one is excited about the idea of starting off light and working to heavy. Most guys particularly want to start off really heavy.
We all like to think we're strong, so we like to go to the strong stuff first. Yes.
So, let's talk about 2.5s.
Mm-hmm.
Where do...
You are going to work out, man. It's good. I'm glad you're on that side.
Yeah. Trying to level out the weight on the stage. Where do the 2.5s come in handy?
Okay, so 2.5-pound plates are actually awesome plates, and I have worked years of my life to try to add those things to a barbell. So typically what happens when you're lifting weights, you get up to like the heaviest thing that you can typically handle, or normally handle, or what you've handled in the past. But you want to get stronger. So in order to get stronger, you have to test yourself. But you want to test yourself in a way that's controlled, safe, and manageable. So if I've only ever lifted, say, 200 pounds, and I want to get to 250, there's some stuff in between. So I have to go to 205, 210, 215, 220. I have to work my way up. So what you would do is if you've only ever lifted 200 pounds, you then put these 2.5s on to make it 205, and you give yourself a chance to try to lift that. So you lift it a couple times, you get used to that weight, and now your body has adapted to that 205 level. That becomes your new normal, and then you try to add a little bit more. So that's it. So when you want to increase your strength, you got to do about these little steps.
Mm-hmm. You get where we're going?
Amen.
Yeah. Sometimes I think when we look at this matter of forgiveness, or kindness, or compassion, we immediately think the biggest possible act of kindness, or biggest possible act of forgiveness. And maybe God is saying, hey, don't think 45s, think
2.5s.
So, Rob, last night, you told me on the phone that you are actually, God is working on you, and it's a 2.5, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm trying to be, well, this is funny because now I have to tell you guys this stuff, and hopefully you wouldn't have known it. But Paul is talking about his, how impatience comes very easily. I'm the same way. So one of the things I'm working on trying to be is more compassionate and more understanding of other people. And part of the reason why is because if I'm kinder in my mind, it gives me more kindness in my life. So I want to try to get rid of things that are making me angry or annoyed, or more so the way I react to things. Because I can't change other people in life, but I can change how I react. So one of my little goals is to not get so mad when I'm driving my car, because people don't know how to drive. So it gets me very frustrated, and I already warned Paul about this, but like basically that just calls me a jackass about 1,000 times a day while I'm driving down the road because everybody's just in my way, no one knows what they're doing. So I'm trying to learn to be calm and understand that, you know, maybe they've had maybe they had a bad day at work, so that's why they're driving 30 miles an hour, because they're not that excited to go home. So that's like something I'm working on right now. Is it does seem small. That's what we talked about. Is just trying to be less mad at people on the road. Doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but if it gets me out of an angry mindset, wherever I'm driving to, I won't have an angry mindset when I get there. So I'll actually be able to enjoy my time in the car. So I started turning off the radio and just giving myself more silence in life. So part of my job is standing face to face and talking to people all day. So it's a very long day. So some silence every now and then is very helpful, and it lets me either pray to God or just relax. But that's something I wanted to do, is that small act of trying to be less of a jerk on the road, and hopefully it would help. So yeah.
It's 2.5. So you get used to lifting 205, and then you can handle that comfortably, and you go to 210. And it won't be long until you look back and I'm nailing it in the car, man.
Yeah.
I'm like in Charlotte, I'm not even saying bad words. Like,
Maybe
dude,
yeah.
dude, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. The point is this. Yeah, let's do that. So the point is this. Paul says, I want you to get rid of the anger and get rid of the rage and get rid of the harsh words and get rid of, look, some of you can just go in and in one day you can clean everything up. Some of us have a lot more work to do, right? And maybe rather than thinking like, how am I going to get it all done? Maybe we ought to start thinking, I'm just going to get stronger by 2.5.
Amen.
Right? I'm just going to get stronger little bit by little bit by little bit. And that's what Paul is teaching us. That if we'll pray those prayers and we'll make those decisions and we'll begin to make those small adjustments, that is a God-empowered transformation. And it won't be long until we look back and we realize the garage looks different. It looks clean. There's space. My life looks different. There's not as much rage. There's not as many harsh words. There's more kindness. There's more compassion. There's less anger. There's more forgiveness. That is often how the Spirit of God works in our lives. Be kind to each other. Tender-hearted. Forgiving one another. Just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you. Here's what I want to do this morning. I'm just going to take just a minute, and we're going to pray. I've asked the band to come and